Hi Stampers, it's Christine from Christine's Stamping Spot. Happy Monday, almost the end of March. April just around the corner and Easter this coming weekend, so that will be a great time. So Stampin' Up! Released their retiring list this last week of the retiring items from the current annual catalog. And as usual, there are some favorites that are leaving us, but also some that are leaving to make room for some new things that will hopefully be coming and will be exciting in our new annual catalog. So what I thought I would do over the next couple weeks is kind of focus a little bit on some of the retiring items, maybe do some projects incorporating some of those retired items, maybe even incorporating them with some of the stuff from the current mini catalog, or some of the things that are not retiring in the annual catalog. So we'll see what we can come up with in the next couple weeks. I just thought I'd try to focus on some of the retired products because there may be something in there that's retiring that you never thought of, or something you thought, oh wow, maybe I'd still like to get that. And it'll still give you a chance to get it before the catalog retires May the 3rd. Now, just to remember, items in that on that retired list are first come, first serve. Once they're gone, they're gone. So typically advice is to say, better get things sooner than later before they're gone and you're disappointed. So having said that, we are going to make a project today using the Tasteful Touches stamp set, which I am happy to say is not on the retiring list because I love this set. I think this is really nice and can be used for a lot of things. And also, in conjunction with using this, we are going to have a little fun with the Gilded Leafing. The Gilded Leafing, which is in the mini catalog, or the January to June, and you can find that on page 33. It's this little image here, which doesn't really show a lot, but it's with the Fine Art Floral Suite if you're looking for it in the catalog. So we are going to be using that. So first of all, just to tell you a bit about the Gilded Leafing, if you have any sort of adhesive, this Gilded Leafing will stick to it. So it's meant to be used with adhesive of some sort. So we are going to play with this a bit using a few different adhesives, or I'll tell you about different ways you can use it and show you some samples later at the end of some different ways that you can use this Gilded Leafing. Now, just a couple of tips when using this to start. This is how it comes in this container. And there is a lot of leafing in here. It may not look like it, but there is. So first tip is be very careful when you unscrew the lid. And this is what it looks like. And I can't even explain really what this feels like. It's feathery, it's soft, it's light and fluffy. There's all kinds of things, words you could use to describe this. Now this container, believe it or not, I have emptied quite a bit of it out already. And that's how compressed it is in this container. So what I would suggest doing is, what I did is I emptied some of it into a Ziploc container. It will be easier to apply to your projects if it's in there. And also a word of warning, once it's in this container, be very careful when you take your lid off. And some other tips, do not blow into this, do not have your heat tool near this, don't sneeze when you're around this because it can go absolutely everywhere. Now, it is a little messy to use, true, but it is also so much fun to use. So I'm just going to keep mine in here, and it lasts a long time, and you can always keep adding to it if you feel that you're running out. Okay, and another tool that's good to have is a little paintbrush, one that's got a little bit of a stipple to it, not too soft, but not too hard. This is maybe a little bit soft, but it's the only one I could find. So this is helpful whenever you're using gilded leafing as well. So just something, if you can find one at the dollar store or whatever, it's good to have. All right, having said all of that, this is the project we're going to make today. I did see this on Pinterest. I can't even, I'm sorry, remember the name. It was Stamping Shani, something like that was the creator, but I did switch it up quite a bit from what she did, but I did kind of keep the same color palette, just sort of changed the look of it a little bit. So I'm going to show you how we did this card, and we did incorporate gilded leafing in here. And so I will show you what we are going to do. All right, so I did do a bunch of pre-cutting and things beforehand. So the first thing you're going to start with is a piece of basic black cardstock. Cut it 8.5 by 5.5, score it 4 1/4. And then you are going to take a piece of crumb cake cardstock. Now I will put all these measurements on the post, but 5 1/4 by 4. And what I did with this was I used the Pinewood Planks 3D embossing folder. Now this folder unfortunately is retiring. It is also one of my favorites. But what I did was I used some soft suede ink to ink up one side of the embossing folder. I placed my crumb cake cardstock on top, closed it, and ran it through the die cutting machine, and then it came out like this. Okay, so then what we're going to do is attach this on the base to start. And we're going to put it like so. Okay, and we'll set that aside for a minute. And then I'm going to show you one way to use the gilded leafing. If you can tell on this card, on a sample, there's this oval here. It's out of white cardstock. Now, it was cut out. It's the largest oval in the Stitched Shapes framelits, which is also retiring, unfortunately. So I cut that out, and we're going to put some gilded leafing on here. So this particular method of using it is sort of the standard one where we use heat and stick powder. Now this looks a lot like an embossing powder, but the one thing you have to remember with heat and stick is when you take your heat tool to it, you only heat it until it melts. If you heat it longer, it will not keep its stickiness. So using heat and stick powder will adhere the gilded leafing. You could use it for glitter if you wanted to adhere glitter to it. So we had this a long time ago, and then it retired for a bit, and now it's been back for a bit. So I'm going to show you how we're going to add this gilded leafing with heat and stick. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to use this leaf image from the stamp set, and we're going to take our Versamark pad and just go around wherever you would like this image to be. So I'm just gonna ink this up, and you're just gonna stamp. Ooh, that wasn't supposed to happen. That's very sticky. We're just gonna stamp around with some leaf images here. And you can always just hold it up to the light if you can't really see where you've stamped, and remember to re-ink between each time you stamp. So I just want it on the outside edges. So if you can see this on the camera. So then we're going to pour on our heat and stick powder. I just want to find a spot where I can put my thumb here. So you're just going to sprinkle it like you would a regular embossing powder. Give it a little flick. And I'm just going to pour this back in the container so it doesn't go all over the place. Okay, so now we can heat set this with our heat tool. Now to remember, just until it melts. just gonna hold this with my scissors so it doesn't blow away. Okay, I think that's good. So now we're gonna bring out our Gilded Leafing. Gently open it. And then you're going to put it in upside down. And it's going to stick to all of this. I'm just gonna stand up, it makes it a little bit easier. Now it looks like a big mess. So all you're gonna do is gently take your finger and just wipe off all the excess, giving it a little bit of a rub. Now you don't want to rub super, super hard because it could take off, you know, some of the image. But you can give it just a little bit, like it's kind of a fine line how much you should rub and not. I kind of go gently at first just to get off the excess leafing that you don't want. Now this one is going to be hidden a little bit under some flowers, but I just kind of wanted a little bit of an antique vintage look. So we're just going to give this a bit of a rub, and you can see, you can start to see that image a little bit better. And it is different than gold embossing powder. This Gilded Leafing for me, it just has so much more texture to it. You know, it's kind of an uneven kind of look, which is really kind of neat. Okay, and then I'm gonna take my brush and just gently go around and brush off any extra excess you might have. Okay, so that looks not too bad. So that is one way to use the Gilded Leafing, and that's with our heat and stick. So now what I did, I wanted this to look a little, even a little bit more texture. So what I did was I ran it through the subtle embossing folder, which is also retiring, unfortunately, and it came out looking like this. I don't know if you can see those fine lines in there and the shine on that leafing. Okay, so that's kind of the look I was going for. All right, so we're gonna set this aside because we're gonna use that in our card in a minute. So another way to use the leafing is with our adhesive sheets. So what I did was I cut a piece of white cardstock, and what this piece will be eventually is this gold panel here, okay? So what we're gonna do first is I cut a piece of our adhesive sheets to match the paper, which this I believe is 5 1/4 by 3. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna peel off this adhesive. Now, sometimes, like I can see already, there isn't adhesive all over, okay? So what I'm gonna do, because I can tell there are some blank spots. So if there's blank spots, the leafing is not going to stick there. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my silicone mat, and I'm gonna add some of our Tombow glue. So what I'm gonna do here, now this may or may not happen to you. You know, it could be that you'll have, you know, the whole sheet covered, but I just happen to notice there are some bare spots. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my finger in this glue, and I'm just gonna rub it on those areas that don't have adhesive on it. Okay, and I know there was a little spot up here, or around the corners or the edges sometimes that can happen, especially now that I've been touching it. So you're just gonna gently wipe that around with your finger wherever you think there isn't any adhesive, okay? Now we'll see if I missed spots. If I did, that's okay. We can always go again in after the fact. All right, so out comes the bin again. Gently take off the lid. I'm just gonna shake this around a little, and then we're gonna put the adhesive side down into the bin and just gently press. Okay, And then we can always add some extra on here, on any spots you see that are white. And then you're just gently gonna rub this off, okay? Now it is messy, but it just feels so neat. And it looks really messy at first, but once you just get working on it and just be patient with it, you know, don't rush. Just kind of be careful with it. Rub all around the edges to get that off. Okay, and you can already see the different sort of texture this has. So you can just kind of give your finger a little heavier rub on there just to get away some of the excess. And it looks like that Tombow glue did the trick. Now, if you happen to rub some off, you can try to put a bit more on. If you find there's still some white spots, you can always add a teeny bit more Tombow and more leafing to it. Okay, so that looks not too bad. So I'm just going to take my brush and just give it a little wipe if there's some bigger spots that are kind of stuck. You can see the texture in this shine. It's definitely different than gold embossing powder, that's for sure. Much different texture. Okay, so I think that is good. And there's some on the back, but I'm not going to worry too much because that will be covered. All right. So there you go. There's the panel that we're going to use. So like I said, a lot of it is already all over my mat, and I'm just going to kind of rub my fingers together to try to get some of the excess off my hands. All right. Okay. So there is that part. So now what I did after I added my leafing is I ran it through the tin tile embossing folder, the 3D embossing folder, which of course is also being retired, which is another nice one. So once I ran it through, I did one ahead of time. It came out like this, which I thought was really cool. It looks like it's a little bit tarnished, but it still has some shine to it. I think that's a really great look. Really neat. Okay, so now I think we can assemble our card. So I'll bring back our base, which we started. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach this tin tile piece with the leafing in the center. Okay, so I'm just gonna add some adhesive of this and try to center this in here. Okay, press down. And it is a little bit sticky, I find, but that will be okay. Okay, so there's that layer. Then we are going to attach our oval. Now, I think I'm going to pop that up with some dimensionals, to give it a bit of extra dimension. Okay. All right, so you can decide which way you want this to show. I think I'll just do it this way. And I'm just gonna put that here a little bit above center maybe, okay? Because I do still want to put a greeting at the bottom. All right, so then what I did was, I did this ahead of time, but in the stamp set, we have this flower. And so I stamped this, like you can see on the sample. I stamped it in Memento ink on white, basic white cardstock 3 times. And then I colored it in with Stampin' Blends. So for this one, I used the dark real red and the light Poppy Parade, and then some dark daffodil in the center. And then I fussy cut those by hand because there isn't a die for them. And then these sprigs are actually from the poinsettia dies that we had at Christmas. So those were cut out of the basic black as well. Okay, so I cut 3 of those. So the first thing though I want to do is put my greeting on. So the greeting I chose on this one, I had the good things in life are better with you. But this one I did, you are so special. I thought that was also lovely. So what I did was I heat embossed that with white embossing powder on black cardstock. And then I cut it out with the rectangle, stitched rectangle dies. So I'm gonna pop that up with dimensionals as well. And I think I'll put this on first because then I will know exactly where I want to put the flowers. So I wanted to stick this a little to the bottom right, about like so. Okay. And then our flowers. So, whoops, flowers and sprigs. So I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of each of these as well. And then we can decide how we want to assemble them on top. Okay. Yeah, it's unfortunate about some of these embossing folders because they are so beautiful. And it's hard to say goodbye, but I'm still going to be using them in some of our projects, I think, even if they are going to be retired, but they are definitely ones that I've really loved in the last few years. Okay, so let's start maybe with this one here. Okay, and then we will put this one beside. And the last one, I don't want to cover up all of this leafing on the oval, so let's see. I'm gonna maybe just tuck this one underneath a little bit, like so. Okay, and now we can add our sprigs, and I just used some glue dots to put those on. So just to the back. Okay, so let's tuck one of these. You know, this is going to depend where you have your dimensionals as well, but wherever you would like to put these on. There's no right or wrong, and you don't even have to use 3 if you don't want to. You could just use 2 of them. So this one, I think I'm gonna just tuck in there, like so. And maybe I'm just gonna add a teeny bit of adhesive on some of these after, just to stick them down a little bit better. Oh, maybe this one didn't. A glue dot on here. It didn't come off, which often happens. Okay, so let's see if we can tuck our last one in here on the side. Even if it's underneath quite a bit, that's fine. I really just wanted it to kind of peek out there, like so. And then maybe some of these, I'm just gonna take some old adhesive and just sort of tack these a little so they don't get all bent out of shape. Could use some Tombow for that as well. This one's peeking over a little bit, but I guess we could always sort of move that around. Okay, so then the last thing I wanted to add was a few of our rhinestone basic jewels. These are champagne rhinestone ones, so there's some different sizes on here. So I'm just going to add a couple there on the greeting, and then I'll add a couple of larger ones up here on the oval, like oopsies. So I can tell I still have gilded leafing on my fingers, but it does wash off, so not to worry. All right, and there are your cards with our gilded leafing. I love that. And it would be neat to see what this looked like with different colors of flowers too. I think you could use many different colors in here, or even just switch up your whole color palette would be nice. Okay, so I have some other samples I wanted to show you of different ways to use it. So this card, here what I did was, this is a piece of the Floral Art Suite, whatever it's called. And if you can see here, I just used one of the stamps, stamped in Versamark, and then put on my heat and stick powder and the Gilded Leafing, so you see some bling on the flowers. These stripes were done using our tear and tape adhesive. So all I did was I put a strip across and a couple of them down, peeled away the backing, and then just attached the gilded leaf on top. So that's that one. This one I did with the ice cream cone suite. These were glue dots. Now some of these, I have to confess, look a little more blobby than actual polka dots. So you want to try to be careful that they are as circular as possible, your glue dots, when you adhere them. And then again, you just have to fold it or place it directly into your Gilded Leafing and it will stick, and you just rub away the excess. So that's kind of a fun birthday one. This one was using the Butterfly Beauty dies, which I'm sad to say are also retiring because I do love it. I'm just going to quickly show you those. They are quite large. Oops. So you get the base and the overlay, and then some extra pieces of butterflies and things. So these are beautiful. I just love them, but they are retiring. And when you use the overlays, like this is an example where you have the base color and then the overlay in a different color on top, and that's kind of how they would turn out if you were just to use the dies on their own. So those are also retiring. So I did use that die, the base die, to cut out the butterflies out of white. And then what I did was I did some sponging with our blending brushes, using some Bermuda Bay, some Granny Apple Green, and some Coastal Cabana just on the butterfly. And then what I did is how I showed you at the beginning. I put some Tombow glue on my silicone mat, and I just took my finger and went over the areas with glue that I wanted the gilded leaf to stick. So then I put it upside down into the container and then rubbed it off, and this is the part that stuck. And then I just sort of attached it to the one side. This is the Old World paper embossing folder, which is also retiring. So that's the embossing folder I used here, which I loved as well. And then I embossed the greeting in white on the Bermuda Bay. I used the Best Year stamp set for that greeting, and then added a bit of twine, and that was that one. And then the last sample I have was more butterflies. So here again, I cut out the base die with the basic black, and I did put adhesive sheets on the back of these ones. So I didn't put gilded leafing on the actual butterfly, I just put it on the background. So I cut a mat, and again, I believe I used the adhesive sheets for that, peeled it off just like we did with a tin tile initially, how we did this, but I left it like this. I didn't run it through an embossing folder. You could if you had another one that you wanted to use, but this backing is just like this. And then I put my butterflies on top, use the Happy Thoughts stamp set, and I did try that with gilded leafing as well, the greeting there. So it does definitely look a little bit different than if you used gold embossing powder. And then use these stitched shapes, oval. And then this ribbon is actually our metallic edge ribbon. So what I did to get it black is I just colored it with my black Stampin' Blend. I just went over the inside vanilla side on both sides a couple of times and gave it a couple of minutes to dry. And then I just made a bow out of that, and I thought the gold edging on that would kind of tie it together. So you can color your ribbon, white ribbon, with your blends. Doesn't matter really what kind of white it is, it should work. But this was easy to do with just a blend. Okay, so those are the projects for today and our little tutorial on gilded leafing. So I hope you'll give it a try. The gilded leafing is in the January to June mini. It may be on back order or not orderable. You'll have to check if you're interested in ordering it. If you would like to order any supplies or retired items, some of them are discounted. Please visit my website at christineludwig.stampinup.net, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now.